And we are live here on the Spoiler Room. Yes, it is January 20th, 2016, and we are starting another special series of episodes. After I turned 40, I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, we're running through our 25th anniversary ones. What should we do next is kind of a special feature that'll be running throughout the year. And I decided to do 40 anniversary films. That's right, films celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, 1976. And I was like, oh, how will that work out? And it is amazing which films came out in 1976. And here today for our first special Big 4-0 episode in the room tonight, we first have the Ziggy Stardust himself, the Lawyer. Are you there, sir?
Hello?
Andrew?
What, man? I thought you were talking about Glenn.
Oh, I was talking about you.
You were breaking up, so I didn't understand.
Oh, I was breaking up.
Yes.
Hold on here. Just give me a second. I'll try that again then. We'll do the intro again.
Did you
I'm
call me
honored that
lovely?
you think I'm thinking you start this, Andrew.
Well, I'm lovely as shit, so yeah, say it again, man. I'm sorry. Let me rock and roll.
Let me do this really quick. We'll just do the intro again. That's okay. Because I want to do it differently anyway, so.
I like it more. I'm sorry, dude. I thought you were talking
No,
about
it's okay.
I just find Glenn lovely, too.
No one.
Well, I'm glad it wasn't me, because I had my mouth full of, what as Andrew would call it, hot vomit. So.
Vermin. Vermin. Let's try this again. And here we are live in the Spoiler Room, January 20th, 2016, a new special series for this year. Last year we did the 25th anniversary series, and I was like, what should we do this year? And then I turned 40, and I was like, what about 40th anniversary films, which leads us to the films of 1976. And man, let me tell you, when you start digging, it's amazing which films came out during that year. Also going on in 1976, though, just some historical facts. The first Cray computer, Cray 1, was released. Super Bowl X, Steelers beat the Cowboys. The first commercial Concorde flight takes off. And Jimmy Carter won the Iowa Democratic Caucus. That's right, folks. And in movies, there was a lot of great ones, and one of them, the first one we're going to talk about tonight, kind of has a little bit of an extra special kick to it. But first, let's introduce who's in the crew tonight to help me talk about the special film. We're going to first introduce the one and only Mr. Ziggy Stardust of the Spoiler Room, the lovely Andrew Shearer. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Mark. Hey, let me just say it's an honor to be part of this show and to be part of the first in the 40th anniversary series. I think it's a great idea, and I'm stoked to be. I was born in 77, January. Very close, so I wasn't quite a 76 baby. It was very, very close.
I was 1 year old, turned 1 year old in 76, so we're all around that similar age there. So yeah, I'm glad to have you part of this interesting film, definitely to kick it off, and I think it'll definitely summarize some of the feelings in cinema in 76. And next to Mr. Andrew Shearer is the one, the only BFD himself, Mr. Glenn Bittner. Hello, Glenn.
That's you young whippersnappers talking about how young you were. I was already 5 by the time this movie came out.
Botulism was still a sauce.
Well, we're glad to have you in here as well, Glenn, for some interesting perspective from those who were in kindergarten or first grade by the time this film came out.
I was working in the mines.
The mines. 32 hours a week just for the privilege of working there, right?
Exactly.
That's great. And last but not least, the bow tie man himself, Mr. Paul Salzar. Paul, hello, sir.
Hello, and since everyone was talking about what they were doing at the time this film came out, I was still trying to not learn or unlearn my Korean because I was a baby then.
Oh.
Did not speak English until a year later.
Really?
That's cool, Paul. All these shows we've done, and I never knew that about you. That's cool.
That is awesome. And so tonight, yes, we are going to talk about one of the films that, uh, if you think about 1976 and some of the unusual films that were going on, this one I think would be near the top of the list. And we also are doing it. Now, these films were chosen by people on our website at specialmarkproductions.com. It just so happens this one made the list, and also the unfortunate happening of David Bowie passing away. So we're kicking it off with The Man Who Fell to Earth, starring, among other people, Mr. David Bowie, playing Thomas Jerome Newton, who is a humanoid alien who comes to Earth to get water for his dying planet. He starts a high-tech technology company to get the billions of dollars he needs to build a return spacecraft. Then he meets Mary Lou, a girl who falls in love with him. He does not count on the greed and ruthlessness of businesses here on Earth, however, and we see how he deals with that and how they deal with him. Okay, I hadn't watched this in ages, and actually I realized I've never watched the full film. I've watched it in parts. So I get to sit down and watch the first film. Film basically first time viewing all the way through, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. But first, let's go to Glenn here. Glenn, your initial feelings with The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Wow, my initial feelings. Wow, this is long. Were my initial feelings. I watched this probably, that would be 23 years ago, freshman year of college, and I just rewatched it again today. So I've seen it twice,
Sure.
and I've seen bits and pieces here and there. So I remember nothing of the first viewing, other than my friend Steve was super, super drunk. Like, I mean, I'm talking even where you'd say, like, shit, man, he's drunk by Wisconsin standards.
Wow.
That guy is wasted. That's all I remember from the first viewing. Is trying not to have Steve puke on me. Watching it again, it's definitely different. I want to know if Mary Lou is supposed to be mentally handicapped. It's just Tommy, look, Tommy, look, Tommy, look, a train, look. I love trains. So I don't know. This is a weird one. It's definitely weird. That said, I think it's still interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of an interesting thing how, you know, I mean, 1976, you didn't have a lot of stuff that actually kind of showed some of the downside of capitalism.
Yeah, that's
as this
true.
movie kind of does. I mean, there's definitely a kind of a, wow, greed can really fuck you over.
There is that running theme in here with that the statement about greed, but I'm not sure if they were trying to make some other statements in here as well. Andrew, what about you? Your feelings with this film, making statements about America's greed and how it can ruin someone?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the definitely one of the big themes on it. It's really cool. I remember I had not seen it. I went to a double feature at the University of Union in the '90s of The Hunger and the late show was going to be Man Who Fell to Earth, and a lot of people were there for The Hunger because it was a vampire movie. But you know, David Bowie's in that one too. Then they showed Man Who Fell to Earth, and not very many people stuck around for it. A friend of mine that went with me, it was his idea to go. He was huge into David Bowie, huge into 70s science fiction, and I watched it with him, and I saw it as the epic that he felt that it was. What a huge story that it tells. I had not seen anything by Nicholas Roeg at the time. I'm since become a big fan. So I just think it's the best science fiction can be seen by anyone in any decade, and if it was made right, there's nothing in it that really dates it bad, and you can relate it to the current times. It's still relevant, and I think Man Who Fell to Earth, you know, because you think about like Logan's Run, some of the other ones, Westworld, Soylent Green, Silent Running. This one is to me, I think probably still one of the more timely and one of the least dated out of all that.
Well, yeah, the theme of American greed, especially, is even more prominent now, I think, than back in '76. In all honesty, with class warfare and such, and this definitely features some of those themes of of government intervention, wealth, and corruption as well. Paul, how about you? You were like me. You just watched the movie the first time all the way through this week. Actually, today. What about you, sir?
Oh well, it blew my mind. First of all, I wasn't expecting this type of film. I thought it was kind of like an artsy film that has like all this, eclecticness about it, about its sound, about its music, and about how the film was actually filmed. With all the different cutscenes, it looked like they tried to slam in as many different styles as they could, and it just went with the music. That kind of skipped around different genres as well. But I guess the biggest thing that came to my mind while I was watching it was this is the story of Howard Hughes as an alien, and also kind of his life being a softcore porn thrown into it. But it definitely had this independent kind of film vibe to it. Especially in the beginning, I thought the way they shot the film, it looked like a very independent film, and then suddenly it turned into a more classical type film as it progressed, and it was like, wow. And then I started noticing them actually doing all these weird little changes, and it was like, oh my god, was that intentional? I hope it was intentional, because it definitely, if it wasn't, I don't know,
It's really a film that stands alone, if nothing else, just for styles. It gets for points for execution, because that's one of the first things that I put down, because I got a whole list of questions here. We probably won't go through all of them, but one of the things was the interesting passage of time. You touched on it, Paul, of things changing, but man, this thing spans decades, doesn't it, Andrew? I mean, we cover I mean, it's, if anyone expecting just a complete linear narrative is going to be kind of lost, I think, wouldn't you say? Because we cover a lot of years.
Well, it's like, Paul said he wasn't sure what to expect, and it's a mind-blowing experience, and that was the way it was tailored to be. But like I said, it's an epic story, and I think, comparing that to Howard Hughes is a really, really, really kind of an astute observation, a great comparison, because this is not a simple alien comes to Earth, has an agenda, and follows it like steadfast until he's either stopped or achieves it, in an action movie style kind of a thing, or doesn't do that at all. This is a different kind of story than we're used to seeing now about an alien, Yeah,
it doesn't. I mean, outside of the rocket stock footage we get in the beginning, you're not even quite sure, if you didn't read the synopsis, that he was an actual alien.
Well, this was before all science fiction movies had to be obsessed with spaceships.
Right.
I mentioned before we started that this is pre-Star Wars.
Sure.
Those movies weren't about spaceships then, and I like that it didn't even give a crap to show you his ship. Really, at the beginning, he's just there. He is the man who fell to Earth. Here you go.
Yeah, he's there already dressed in some slick garments as well. But I'm glad Paul mentioned the Howard Hughes angle, because that's exactly what ran through my mind as I watched the alien develop his World Enterprises technology company, and it started becoming a recluse. And here he is, got all this money, and we watch him as he goes to a more sparse living conditions, and even sparser and remote living conditions, trying to really just get him away from everybody. Glenn, did you get that Howard Hughes vibe from the alien?
I didn't until now.
Oh,
but it makes sense, doesn't it? I didn't think of it either.
It absolutely makes sense. I mean, it totally does. I mean, the whole, billionaire recluse thing, kind of odd and bizarre. And yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and for the younger viewers, it's like Tony Stark.
There you go. without the armor, yeah. For the younger viewers, definitely. But yeah, Howard Hughes definitely came to my mind, especially as you get to the scene, where he's got that house, on the lake. because folks, we like I said, we cover a lot of time in here, and first we see the alien, our man, what's his last name again? Newton, uh, who Thomas here, we see him first trying to not pawn but just sell a lot of wedding rings to get his start of his wealth, and then with no explanation, because again, this is 76, so, and the storytelling's out there a little bit even for that. Suddenly he's massive wealth and has the World Enterprise Corporation, thanks to eight or nine basic patents he owns. So I have to ask, and I want to start with we'll start with Glenn here. Glenn, do we feel that he's been on Earth a long time, even before we catch up with him, hasn't he?
I think so. I mean, the fact that he, pretty much when we first see him, he's already got like a British passport and all that kind of stuff, and just, yeah, I mean, he's been on Earth a long time. And throughout the movie, it's obviously a lot of time passes too.
Right, but I mean, even before, because he's got all of those rings, and
Yep.
he's got basic patents, which basically meant, folks, that he owned like three or four of the major tech companies in '76, like the big ones, like Apple, Sony. So he had to be around for a while if he owned the basic patents. And he crossed paths with this lawyer that was Farnsworth, right? Oliver Farnsworth, played by Buck Henry. Paul, what'd you think of the lawyer?
I thought he looked like Tyrell from Blade Runner because of those glasses. But I loved his character. He was the character. Some of the other characters, when we get to talk about the other characters more, I felt that they changed, and in some cases, I didn't like how they changed. With Farnsworth, I thought that character stayed kind of true to himself. I like the fact that they kind of hinted at what type of relationship he was having.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was just an interesting thing about his character, especially, this is the 70s. I wasn't, again, expecting this type of film from, at this time. And it was shocking. He was a really likable character, and I did enjoy watching him when he was on screen.
Yeah, and the alien just comes up and basically makes him the handler of his entire fortune, basically.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for his face changing, his color of his hair changing, the first time that they jumped through time, forward in time, I wouldn't have known it had I not seen his face change.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, David Bowie's
Doesn't.
character pretty much doesn't age at all, his alien character. But, yeah, the lawyer, his helps gives kind of an indication of time. And, yeah, I got a kick out of how they handled his character. Andrew, what about you? His relationship, especially, how they mention it, but they show it but don't mention it. It's like there's no words, but you know what kind of relationship this guy actually has as far as his preferences and such.
Well, that guy is Buck Henry, man.
Right.
And anybody that's seen classic SNL knows who Buck Henry is, but he wrote The Graduate, right? Screenplay for that, or adapted screenplay for that. I don't really remember. He wrote some other cool stuff, like Catch-22. I think he wrote.
Yep.
What else? To Die For, I think. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent.
Yeah, he did. He did To Die For as well. Yeah, he wrote some interesting scripts.
I'm forgetting something awesome. Crap. Oh well.
Get Smart. We did a lot of episodes of Get Smart.
No, the Ryan O'Neal movie. We're not stopping until we can get Heaven Can Wait. Heaven Can Wait.
Wait. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I love that film.
Shit. Sorry. Okay, so
Okay.
Buck Henry. I really like that he was the guy, and he gives him that huge stack of money. That was so gangster what he did, and he's looking at him, and he's got his glasses on, and he's looking at him with his glasses. Such a neat kind of, Coke bottle showdown.
Yeah.
Scene there in that apartment that first time he just goes to him, and but that's a great way to illustrate, because what you have is a big concept here. And this is a great reveal. If you think about the cast doesn't really know who this guy is yet, and doesn't really know even if they think, well, he's an alien, the man who fell to Earth, or he's an alien, they don't know how smart he really is, and they don't really know you don't really know what it is he's trying to do either. You
Right.
know? You don't find out till later about the water from his planet and all that stuff too. So it's very mysterious and extremely intriguing. I've had people say they fell asleep during the movie. Give me a break. It moves at like breakneck pace, and like you said, with all the stylistic changes to show the passing of time. That's a very original idea. And freaking Buck Henry, you gotta be crazy if you don't like that guy. He's great.
Yeah, Buck Henry was great in it, and I also enjoyed, his just interactions with this character of Thomas Jerome Newton. Glenn, what about you with the Buck Henry character, Oliver Farnsworth?
It was interesting. The glasses really, really kind of threw me.
Mhm.
Think about Office Space, right? That guy.
Stapler.
Although I did like when he apologized when he didn't go through the window the first time.
Oh, yes.
That was
Alright.
sorry.
Skip it to the end.
Well, that's what's interesting about this film is you've got a lot of great themes in here. And then you get these odd bits of humor. Like Glenn mentioned, there's a scene later in the film where his character is basically trying to get tossed through the window by these government agents, and he doesn't go through the window the first time, and he just
cracks it. Oh, forgot about that. That's so funny.
And he just goes,
That's near
"Oh,
the end.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that's near the end." And
Okay.
he apologized, and I'm just like, I started laughing. I'm going, this should be a really serious and dark scene, but he just drops that line, and you're just like, oh. The other humor bits in here too. Paul, they're in church. They're singing probably one of the most popular songs in Britain.
Yes.
And David Bowie, his character, can't sing.
Exactly. But he sounds like me in church, so I was okay with that.
Did you catch that? I thought
Yes.
I'm like sitting here going, oh my God, am I supposed to find this funny? Were they doing this on purpose?
Well, the preacher even says, that they're doing this English hymn to kind of for their friends, and I'm assuming that they were talking about him directly from. So yeah, I think they did that on purpose.
I just thought, here it is, David Bowie, British, singing a very popular British hymn, and
He couldn't sing it.
He couldn't sing it. He needed the words. I'm like, wow, okay, that's actually a pretty smart bit of humor in there. But that's peppered throughout here, isn't it, Glenn? Where you get just these odd bits of humor in the film. And,
which is that's one of the interesting things with the movies, because a lot of the movie is not really comedic.
Right.
And I think that the little bits of humor are well placed to break that up a little bit. I think if you took those little bits and gags out, you'd have the movie I think would be too dry, much too dry. But they don't have enough of it in where it becomes a spoof of itself.
Right. It doesn't become distracting, but
Correct.
at the same time, they put in there to break it up. Yeah, because I really got a kick out of some of that humor that they threw in there. I'm just like, wow, it's unexpected. So, Thomas Jerome Newton, I definitely got the Howard Hughes vibe in this guy's Alien, but Andrew, do you think they were kind of going with the whole Alien feeling of how possibly we perceive the rich and famous as almost being alien, not necessarily from another planet, but just in a whole different lifestyle?
Well, yeah, I mean, you got that kind of detachment that the business person would have, and how we kind of see the successful person, as or the smart person rather, as somehow more than average or more than human or somehow better, So the idea that they would not even be from Earth is absolutely, and but also you can't help but think about David Bowie's persona as a musician, because Ziggy Stardust is an alien as well. And so it was a great idea to cast him in the part. But what was crazy, what you guys mentioned about him not being able to sing, is that it's the opposite of when musicians are normally in movies, right? I mean, like,
Right.
think about Elvis's movies. I think Eddie Murphy was the one who made the joke about Elvis can't act, so they make him sing, Elvis, we got to win this race. We got to win this race. You know? And so, like, to have him not do any music, he didn't even do the soundtrack, you know?
Yeah, that's what got me. I was like, wow, there's not even a David Bowie track on the soundtrack.
Yeah, so I came into it with being a fan of David Bowie, being of the MTV generation, and knowing him as someone who, obviously he can act because he was a fake person.
Yeah.
He went through a lot of incarnations before he was even famous. So to me, it's kind of hard to separate kind of that aspect from it too. It's just like, I think, if you have a movie where someone's an alien, why wouldn't you want David Bowie as the alien? But to me, that's really good though. Just going toward it, because you think about They Live also.
Yeah.
Who were the aliens in that movie? They were the elite, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the kind of just unrelatable to the quote unquote common guy, man.
Yeah, and it allows them to put him on the outside of everything that's happening.
Right. So I mean, he didn't necessarily need to be an alien, a man from another planet, in order for them to still kind of go for what I think they were going for in this film. Did they, Glenn? Thomas Jerome Newton, did he really need to be an alien?
No, he didn't need to be at all.
Yeah.
Just based, as you guys mentioned, Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes is pretty damn alien-like if you actually look at the history of his life. So no, they didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. And there's actually, I was reading commentary from people who actually debate whether or not he ever actually was, and whether or not much of the alien stuff is his own delusion.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That crossed my mind, especially with the mud hut alien house that he imagined.
I just thought it looked like a potato cake.
It totally looks like a potato cake.
Yes, folks, we do get some flashbacks of the alien as he thinks of his family back on Earth, which at first he's playing a very good alien husband, at first, and he's thinking of them, and their house, looks like a potato cake with windows.
And it's a monorail too, so
it's a monorail. It's a
potato cake's coming too from Arby's.
Yes.
It's a mobile home, I guess, an alien trailer, if you will.
They're bad, man. There's no water. They're on this.
No, but they've got enough technology to get him somehow to planet Earth. So yeah, it very well could be Thomas Jerome Newton's just hallucinating a lot of this stuff, but it wouldn't quite explain his non-aging, except if he's pulling a Michael Jackson and doing the oxygen tank. But yeah, that is a interesting observation of him thinking he's an alien, possibly, versus actually being an alien, though I think they were intending him more to be an alien.
But yet, when they were doing all their tests, they couldn't prove that he was. So,
Well, because they played that angle of only if he wanted to reveal.
Yeah, and his eyes and all that stuff.
Would he actually work? And that leads us to the people around Thomas Jerome Newton. One of them is a Nathan Bryce, played by Rip Torn. Now, you guys have to explain this to me, because I kind of got lost on who was who in this film at some point. We have Rip Torn, but we have this professor character who's cheating on his wife, but then we have this other character who also seems to be a scientist. I kind of got lost with the characters there. Glenn, could you help me out on who was who? It was Rip Torn. He was the guy that came in the helicopter and got the job, but who was the professor guy? Because he seemed to drop out of the picture, or were they one and the same? I couldn't quite follow that part, in all honesty.
Well, the scientist, that was Rip Torn, wasn't it? I thought it was.
Yeah, but
Yes.
there was the professor, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, I don't know what happened to him.
But
Wait, no.
were they the same guy?
They're the same guy.
Okay, see,
Yeah.
and for me, I had a hard time distinguishing it. I think it was passage of time, maybe, but at
Yes.
first...
No. That's definitely, because,
Okay.
the professor who slept with all the young girls, that's the same as the scientist, because that's both Rip Torn.
Okay, that was both Rip
Tell
Torn.
by the voice.
Yeah.
Because
not-
all I can hear, thanks to Men in Black, all I ever hear when I hear Riptorn talk now is, "We're not hosting an intergalactic dinner." That's all I can ever hear when I hear his voice now.
Thank you. Me too. Me too. Yes.
I guess I'm the only one that thinks of Freddy got fingered when I hear Rip Torn.
you had to bring up that movie.
I love that movie.
I know. That's fine. There's people that do love the movie, and they let me know it on my review constantly.
I'm glad there's more than one of us, but I would never
there's
make you feel
plenty.
bad about it.
There's plenty of people out there. Trust me, and they let me
to
know
out
their
myself
feelings.
just
We should
for
put a link to that so that it can continue.
Yeah. So okay, so and I thought I was following the movie really good, but I did get jumbled there for a little bit on is this the same guy or not? And I think it might have been the passage of time. But thank you for the clarity. So this is the same guy. We meet Rip Torn's character, and he's basically giving A's for a bed.
Lots of them.
Lots of them.
Lots of A's.
But we also get the
P&A.
impression this guy doesn't exactly like being a professor, does he, Paul?
No, because he was talking about it. He has this thing where he's talking with the other either professor or maybe the dean of the school, where he's talking about how he's very interested in the worldwide enterprise. Yeah, because he thought that they were like bringing about the dream, and he's talking about this is what he really wants to do. He wants to like explore and not be like stifled in there, and so he gives up this like lavish like sex life and totally goes back into this research and gets 3 times his salary, and he even mentions that his libido drops during that time where he's like research. And I was like, wow, this guy is not normal. But yes, so I'm totally off of what we were.
No, I was just
thinking about all the boobies and got
I
lost.
think
thinking
I was.
all the movies. He's thinking
all the movies.
Folks, Rip Torn gets a lot of action in this film, and being 1976 and them being a lot lax in nudity, there's plenty of it in this film.
Well, in the cutscenes, there's one scene where they kind of cut to like a samurai fighting scene, and it was interesting.
Yes.
How they blended those two things together, and it was like, and then when the actual sex scene ended, the samurais fought, but they still played the sound of the two having sex, and so it sounded like the samurais were
Having sex.
yeah. But it was such an interesting film. You have to watch it because of that like weirdness of it. It's like. Wow.
Well, that's not the first time they play around with 2 different scenes with sex either, do they, Glenn? Where they've got where Thomas Jerome Newton goes to the hole-in-the-wall hotel where he eventually meets Mary Lou, but he's in there and they're doing cut scenes of him because he couldn't handle going up an elevator, so he passes out, his nose gets bloody, and Mary Lou's carrying him because he's David Bowie and wafer thin, apparently, but she's carrying him down the hall, and dispersed with her carrying him down the hall, we get scenes of a professor, I think it was the professor, the Rip Torn character, getting more tail, or excuse me, more women, or someone in the hotel getting more women. What was that scene? was that supposed to be Rip Torn's character as well? I couldn't.
Rip Torn a player. You know that, man?
Because he had like 4 different women in it.
Yeah.
Intergalactic kegger, man.
But what I was wondering is, were they implying a little bit like our alien has maybe ESP or telepathy or some kind of connection to these people that he trusts? Because, I mean, here Rip Torn's Nathan Bryce character eventually goes to work for him, and here the impression I got was that he was getting visions of Nathan Bryce's various trysts. Is that what was going on, or were they were just blending 2 scenes together again, like with the samurai?
I think it was just this scene needs boobies. I think is what it was. What they were thinking. I think there's some boobies in here. This is 1976, man. We got to use up all the boobies we can while we still got them.
Wow.
It's been about 15 minutes. We haven't had movies on the screen.
Yeah.
What the heck? Andrew, what about you? That interesting. The samurai scene, I could see it made a little bit more because they were both fighting, and the couple was play fighting, Nathan Bryce's character. But then her carrying our basically kind of bleeding from the nose hero down the hall mixed with Nathan Bryce's sex scenes. What was they going for with that, or was it just kind of to show the movie?
No, I think it was cool. I mean, it's all about contrast at that point, and who's a strong character and who's a weak character. Because you're Jerome up until that point, he's seen as just like kind of like enigmatic and very strong and very smart. And you get this moment where he can't handle being in the elevator, and she doesn't know how to work it. And so she like keeps missing the floor, and he's just like, I should have taken the stairs. But what's great about it is that I think I read that when she's carrying him, they used like a bicycle seat and a skateboard, kind of this weird contraption, so she could actually carry him, or some kind of DIY. I don't know. I can't confirm that or anything, but like, I love. This is just one of the many scenes I love the way that they intercut things like that, because the sex scenes are wild. They're like a Kubrick Clockwork Orange kind of an orangey looking thing, and then but you also have Bowie there just sitting in the bed just hating it, and I kept getting the feeling that he could hear them, which would be it's a later way to kind of I don't know what's the word for it, but he has an orgy of his own, not with more than one person, but still there's some wild sex that'll happen later between him and her. So I think as an editor, the person was having a really fun time kind of foreshadowing things that would happen later between these two characters that are just meeting for the first time.
Yeah, which enters Mary Lou, because Nathan Bryce, we kind of follow him. He's the guy, he's the dreamer. He's one of the people that Thomas Jerome Newton ends up trusting with his project of building this spaceship. And then he also kind of starts to fall, and eventually does fall, for Mary Lou, the hotel worker. And she was an interesting character, as Glenn alluded to before. She starts out she seems kind of just wanting or needing or very fascinated by our character, but she soon becomes obsessed with him. And then I don't know what happened to her going along, but Paul, what were your feelings on Mary Lou's progression through this film? Was it the richness that corrupted her from being the small town girl to the rich guy's wife?
I think that could be one angle of it. The other thing is that she's just basically a symbolism for addiction in general, because you get that initial interest, and then you get really obsessed, and then you go through withdrawal when you actually have to leave the drug that she was so obsessed about. And that's also too, how she did not age well, I think, because her face just totally she had this wonderful, wonderful face early on, and she had this kind of like vibrant aura about her. She was this bubbly character, potentially, like Glenn said, mentally hurt.
Sure.
But also to all the symbolism taken out. I did not like her character, because at first I thought, okay, this is going to be an interesting character. She starts out kind of, being interested in the guy. She actually shows that she's got strength by lifting him, through there, and cares about him, honestly does care about him. And then toward the end, when she, like, especially the scene where he is supposed to leave her and go into space back home, she's like totally, constantly this annoying character that I hated. It's like, I don't want the money. I want my Tommy. I want my Tommy. Oh my God! Just we got it the first 2-3 times you said it, and then toward the end, and especially when she kind of like, I think she does hook up with
Nathan Bryce,
Mr. Jingle Balls.
Jingle Balls. That's the impression I got, was that her and Nathan Bryce ended up growing close together, really close together on that.
And I mean, it kind of, yes, she still loved him, but she gets all pissed off because the ring doesn't fit her finger. And I mean, she could have tried her pinky finger or something like that. She didn't try hard enough, in my opinion. So
She
I'm
gets-
passionate about this one.
You
one
really?
issue.
Wow.
This one issue.
This one character, wow. I do like your idea of addiction, though, because because even with the water, I mean, he's still, okay, do we get the angle, Andrew, of women corrupt? Because even when he's first in the hotel, he's still just going for water. And then we see later on he's living with her, and he's kind of up the ante and moved to vodka.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are those who say that The Man Who Fell to Earth is is a story about alcoholism. And if you go back to the '60s, which is when it was written, it can be seen as like a Cold War story or whatever. But I really see it as like a kind of an alcoholism kind of a thing, and because you think of it as like, well, he's here for water, then he gets distracted, and then he becomes a drunk, and of course the final shot of the movie is there's no question of what's happened to him finally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's got alien physiology, which would mean it would probably take more for him to get drunk, because he's obviously strong enough to withstand space travel anyway, so he had to have a pretty strong constitution. Now, he watches TV constantly too, which says that he's so smart he needs more. He needs, like, how many TVs does he need to stay like stimulated and distracted? It takes he has a room full of televisions at one point. The room
Yeah.
was like 5 or 6, so everything has got to be in excess of him, because he is superior being and stuff. But I don't hate her, and I don't know that necessarily it's her fault either. I think he was just kind of prone to, he was going to do it anyways. He's just kind of that kind of guy, I think.
Well, I thought it's interesting you mentioned the TVs, because as he moves on, he gets more and more TVs as the richer he got and the closer he got to his rocket ship. But then after he reveals he's an alien to Mary Lou and moves on, he actually whittles himself down back to one TV.
Yeah.
Is this him cutting back on his TV and on his addiction, or is this just him needing less stimulation? Has he hit a bottom now to where he doesn't need as much distraction?
No, he's becoming more human, man. He's diluting the alienness. You know what I'm saying? He was, super smart, did all the patents. They're obviously a hyper intelligent race or whatever, because they've already figured out how to get from one planet to another, and all of that other stuff. They just can't, they can't quite strike their water problem and everything.
Right.
So I mean, it makes total sense. But yeah, he becomes so human later, as time goes on, that eventually he can't. They zap him with the X-ray, and his contacts then are fused to his eyes or something.
Yeah.
Kind of
So
a spin on the novel where they actually blind him, and that's why he can't finish his project, because he's totally blind from what the government does to him. But in the movie, yeah, he just seems like a transformation, not only into a human, but into just a really defeated dude.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the government, because we do get the government in here at some point. It's like he couldn't be this rich and smart, and suddenly our government gets very paranoid and moves in and finally starts to plot to basically take down his corporation. Guys, were they making a statement about government interference into businesses, or
They grab his ass right before he gets on his ship.
I know.
It's like,
well, and then they destroy. Don't they destroy his ship too?
yeah.
Isn't that what that one scene was? Because again, it for me, and don't get me wrong, folks, I love art picks, and that's why I wanted to talk about this one. But for me, I was like, wait, are they blowing up his original starship, or did they blow up another one?
It could be interpreted as both.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're talking about. Oh God, what do they do? They kind of go like, this is a waste of money or whatever, and they just destroy what's kind of left of it or whatever, and then they end up destroying the place where he lives too, isn't it? Like that hotel. I mean, it just all kind of crumbles around him. He's got no choice. He's not welcome anywhere.
Yeah.
The room with the ping pong table, though, was fascinating.
So cool.
Because at
the
the wooded
leaves.
area, yeah, with the leaves on the ground, the wooded area painted on the walls.
There's so many visual things going
Oh
on
my
like that in
God.
this film. It's wild. Or like their spaceship, Glenn, his spaceship of soundproof material and a glowing ball.
Yes.
What'd you think of his spaceship in it? I mean, because he apparently got enough money to build it, but that just was kind of very 60s sci-fi, wasn't it?
I thought it was a recording studio, is what I thought it was.
Yes.
He made a record eventually. It might have been.
The Visitor.
The
was filmed.
Visitor, the
Yes.
record,
right.
yeah.
Dude, I could rebuild his ship for $100 and go to Walmart right now. We could rebuild his ship right now.
2016 really buys you a lot more in terms of space travel.
We'd CGI it though. You know,
We'd have to CGI it,
Yeah.
just like his eyes.
loved him.
Well, his eyes, they did do good with the alien eyes, yeah.
Oh, can we talk about that shot where he takes it? It's in reverse.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy crap! How did they do it, man? How did they do that?
Yeah, that's what I found interesting is that I found out this film was made on a budget of $1.5 million. That was the entire budget reported of this film. Apparently, he used this money. The producer got this money for insurance that they would make the movie, and that's what he used to make the movie.
Awesome.
was that amount, apparently, from what I was reading, which I found just fascinating. But yeah, some of the effects they don't do many, but they do some major makeup effects when he decides to reveal himself to Mary Lou and show his true self. They do this thing with eye covering where he takes his tweezers and pulls his...
It's one shot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one shot in a mirror, and it was wild that they did that, and not only that they've got this singer David Bowie doing it. I mean,
Great. I don't know.
It wasn't a body double, but go ahead, Paul.
The trivia spots that you get on these like websites and stuff, they talked about him saying that he was so excited about this kind of film that he'd be willing to do anything that the director wanted him to do. So
Well, he's on a lot of cocaine too.
that was true.
Yeah, they
That
interviewed him later on, and he said, yeah, he was high for the whole film. He was doing
Hey,
about...
David, eat this bird. Okay.
Apparently, he was like doing 10 grams a day of coke.
Smokes.
I was
was-
joking.
No, he did it. I read up on this. Apparently, in an interview, he mentioned that he was like on 10 grams a day, and he'd read his lines for the day, and he'd shoot the scenes the day he read the lines. And he was kind of out of it, but that's exactly what they wanted for the character. So
that's perfect.
he wasn't trying to be the alien character. He was just stoned out of his mind. And
And it worked, man. He's great. He's fantastic.
Oh, it's a great performance in there because he just seems disconnected the entire time, really, from everything in here. Even when he's being close to Mary Lou, he seems distant, and he plays it very well. But mentioning the government, going back to the government really quick, there is an agent, Peters, who kind of is the government agent that takes over World Enterprises and helps orchestrate the kidnapping of our Thomas Jerome Newton and get him experimented on in that. And Peters is played by Bernie Casey,
Jefferson.
who's done a lot of things, and I enjoyed his character. He doesn't get a whole lot of time, but he's one of the guys in there that is the government guys that want to take over this business because it's just gotten too large. And I enjoyed Bernie Casey, even though you get to see maybe a little too much of him. What'd you think of the Peters character, Glenn? Did you kind of follow what his purpose was, or did they leave it rather ambiguous for him?
I didn't follow a lot of people's purpose in this movie. No, I think he was left, kind of ambiguous on purpose.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think I need to watch this movie again to better understand it, but I'm not sure if I want to watch it again right away. Um, so
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things I think that I missed, with just the one, one viewing every 24 years is not sufficient to fully understand a movie like this.
No, it isn't, and that's what I find fascinating about this film. I mean, this is definitely a classification where many out there would go, oh, it's an art house pick. Oh my God, it's so. But if you just pay attention a little bit, your mind starts thinking, well, what about this? Rather than being spoon-fed, like you're pretty much. And yes, I'm going to my little soapbox here, but it's the simple fact of storytelling nowadays in most, not all, most films, you're spoon-fed everything. Here, you're fed nothing. Until that scene in the desert, you don't even realize why he's actually on the planet if you did not read the synopsis. I mean, and that's 2 hours in. And this is a 2.5 hour movie, and we don't get the reveal till the end of why he's actually doing this. And I found it not frustrating to watch, but it is. Glenn's right. This is definitely a film that you can't just watch once because you'll miss a lot of things. And I do want to watch it again, but not right away because, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. And that's why I was having a little trouble coming up with some questions today because I'm just like, I want to ask about everything.
I have an observation about the Peters character, though, because
Sure.
I mean, we talk about him being kind of like symbolic and of the ambiguous like government kind of controlling, but they took the time to show a scene where he was with his wife and with his kids. So that was kind of an interesting thing. It's like, okay, yeah, the government is this, but the government still does care, and the government is kind of, they still worry about their own families too. I thought that was just an interesting thing to add on. Otherwise, it would have been just a really bad thing to put into the film because they didn't need it then at that point if he was supposed to be the evil government. So I think they intentionally wanted to show you that all the characters had a little bit more depth, and that they have reasons for doing the things. I'm sure that they probably meant that he was doing all of this stuff to protect his own, family. Yeah.
And the boobs.
Well, yes. What a lovely, lovely set of children he had.
What a lovely set of children. There are some scenes in here that I will fully admit I appreciate cinema, I appreciate art that just felt like out of left field, like, yeah, you're just going for the nakedness. I mean, the scene with Peters and he's naked in the water and he comes up, there's his wife, she's naked, and it's like, okay.
Well, they're both athletes. Amazingly, they're just, their physiques were just like, wow, this is like superheroes before superheroes were popular.
They were ripped, that's for sure. So, but you got a lot of scenes like that though too, where you would just get these characters doing something and then it just drift off and no real word or reason or explanation. So, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, is it, Glenn? That you don't get actually spoon-fed or explanation or exposition from just about anything in this film.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Pardon me. I hate being spoon-fed. I hate being spoon-fed. I hate the fact that foreshadowing is now slapping you in the face with a 50-pound fish. I like to be able to either figure things out for myself, or I like things that sometimes are open-ended, where it's open to interpretation of what it could be. It's got to be done right, though, for it to work, because sometimes you get something where they leave it open-ended and you're just kind of like, what, it's got to fit in the context of the story. If the story going throughout has little bits that are left kind of open and open to interpretation, that's fine. You can't just all of a sudden have just a normal story and then just leave the ending like, boom, like what the fuck happened. you have to build to that.
Right.
And I think this movie has enough open-ended things that are left where you can interpret it in different ways where I think it works.
Right. I do too. That it tells enough of a linear story, more so than most of Terrence Malick's stuff. No offense, I I know people who love his films. I don't get all his films, but it had kind of that feel to it. Or I was talking to a Spoiler Room regular, Scotty Davis, and he mentioned how this kind of had a Dune feel as far as how the story was told, in a way where you're not really told everything. You really jump scene to scene in this film, and it all the way up to the end. You don't really get a complete resolution, do you, Paul?
Exactly. I still, after watching this, I
Mhm.
don't even know if his family or is actually dead or waiting for him. It's like that box with the cat inside. I'm not
Schrodinger's?
100%. Yeah, because it's like, are they dead, or because they showed scenes where they were dead, and then they showed flashback scenes where they're alive, and so that the movie just leaves that so much open-ended, and there's just so many things that definitely you have to watch this again eventually
Mm-hmm.
to pick up the extra stuff, because I don't think I could I don't think I could watch through it the first time that I did and not pick up everything. I swear I could probably pick up twice as many things now if I watched it again, especially talking with you guys about the film.
Yeah. Well, what got me too, kind of with that ending, is the fact that he made an album.
The
And
Visitor.
Andrew, he's trying to be in hiding from being kidnapped by the government, and the man comes out with an album, and people know who he is. I mean, was the government looking for him that heavy after so many years, or do you think they kind of gave up?
I don't know. I kind of thought like the visitor might have been his way of, like a desperate way of communicating with his home planet.
Sure.
Did you know that
Radio
that
waves.
you know what I mean? Like, 'cause how did they?
Well,
I don't.
he alludes to it that they watched their Earth on TV, so we know TV and radio waves, they do intercept them.
Right. So,
So,
'cause he makes some mention like about the radio, like he was hoping that she'll hear it on the radio, his
hmm
wife. And so I thought maybe he made the record as a way to communicate with his home planet, like a hopeful way of communicating with his home planet. That's kind of what I didn't even think about the government as far as the record was concerned, but yeah, they certainly didn't have a problem finding them.
yeah, I
You find
mean,
me well, your record.
yeah, yeah, I mean, Nathan Bryce retort. He kind of finds him. I'm like sitting here going, and he's looking around at the helicopters flying up, and there's waiters, and he's not exactly keeping a low profile, but at the same time, has the government given up on him, Glenn, on kidnapping him and trying to figure out who he is? Or are they still looking, and is he still in hiding? Because I thought that was kind of just left open at the end, which is a good thing, which is why I brought it up. What was your impression on that with the government angle? Because he escapes, they left the door open, and what, they don't go after him anymore?
Ah,
Yeah, I know, right?
it's the government. If they're watching everyone already, anyways, they know where he is. They know what he's doing. If they need him, they can find him, and he'll be too drunk to get away.
Well, and also they make it seem like so much time has passed that the furor over him or the interest in him is like a generation removed. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
coolest part, right, to me, that I remember going like, "Holy crap!" is when he realizes he's not even trapped anymore. He's not even being held prisoner anymore. He's like, "How'd you get in here?" When Mary Lou shows up, she's like, "Yeah, the door's open." He's like, "Oh, really?" He just pushes it, there it goes. He could have left. So I think there was just no one except the people that knew him personally, even would even think about him. He's just kind of old news. And why would the government care? They took him apart, and you know what I mean. They got everything they could from him.
Yeah, they took most of his money, though he must have had some money. So because
He said he had it. He said he was still rich.
he said he was still rich. So those offshore bank accounts, right?
There you go. There you go.
Of course, he had fallen off the Mary Lou wagon when she showed up at his prison, quote unquote prison, which I think that alluded to him falling off the wagon of swords too, is when she shows up and they just have a wild time shooting a gun full of blanks.
That's awesome. That's an awesome scene. Oh my god, that sex scene. I mean,
Powerful.
I mean, they don't love each other.
No.
Going through the motions anyway, but it's just and a lot of nudity. If you ever want to see what David Bowie's penis looks like, it's there a lot of times.
Yep.
Or Rip Torn's for that as well, because back in that montage scene of the 4 different women he was sleeping with, at one point she talks to his penis, and we get to see her talk. We get to see Rip Torn's penis. So,
But then she says the line that you like fear the most. It's, "Oh, this kind of reminds me of my dad."
That was great.
Oh.
Rip Torn's crazy. Like in real life, he was kind of crazy. Like he got kicked off of Easy Rider. How fucking crazy do you have to be?
Just how crazy do you have to be to get kicked off that? So there's just a lot of wild imagery, a lot of things going on, metaphors, all kinds of things you can read into it, and I think that leads it to because it's not told in a traditional story sense. We jump around an awful lot in this film, and if you don't pay attention for the 2 hours and 20 minutes it is or whatever, you're going to get lost. Though I do like that at the very end in the soundtrack they end it with the jazz tune Stardust, which I thought was really an interesting choice, considering it's David Bowie. So I think we're going to wrap up this episode here with just kind of some final general thoughts with this and recommendations, who you might want to recommend this to, considering this is a 40-year-old film. Glenn, we'll just start with you right away, sir. If you could, your kind of final observations or thoughts with this film, and who nowadays would you recommend this film to, considering the modern Hollywood audience?
Well, I wouldn't recommend this to any of the modern Hollywood audience. They would not. They couldn't sit through it. They wouldn't understand what was going on because they're not being spoon-fed everything, and it is at times it's very slow. Which if there's not explosions every 8 seconds, American audiences don't know what to do.
Right.
I would recommend this to. I'm trying to think of anyone younger I would recommend it to. It's hard. There's some I know that I could recommend it to. Those. So if I've got a couple friends on Facebook who are in their like early 20s, who I'm certain have probably already seen this because I already know that they're big David Bowie fans and they're fans of people like David Lynch and stuff like that, where they're going to get things that aren't your standard Hollywood type film. They're going to get things that don't always make sense, and they're going to enjoy things that don't always make sense, because part of the fun is trying to find the sense in the senseless.
Right.
So that's what this movie is. It's at times it doesn't seem to make sense, but there is something going on there. There's a story being told, and there's actually there's stories being told within the story as well. So it's part of the fun is trying to figure out what actually is all happening. So to anyone who likes a good kind of mystery as far as the movie goes, and I don't mean classic whodunit, just like of what's going on, that's who I would recommend seeing this.
Cool. And Paul, what about you, sir? Your kind of final thoughts, who you'd recommend this to?
I would recommend if you like Criterion films, that's the type of crowd that this movie would appeal to. If you like to interpret movies your own way, this is a great movie for that. If you're the type of person that has to get everything explained to you as it's happening, you probably will not like this film.
And did you enjoy it yourself on your first viewing?
I did, actually. It was interesting. It's like but I think I enjoyed it more after talking with you, because now I really do think it is this one big massive metaphor. Now I want to watch it with that in mind and see if it's, see if it's true. Because But the beauty of this film, though, is that I can be right and I could be wrong, and you can be right and you can be wrong. It doesn't matter, because it's you take your own personal good out of this. The value of this film is what you take from it, and that's the best thing about films.
Yeah, it definitely epitomizes that it's just there and it's up to you to decide how you interpret it. Speaking of interpreting, Andrew, your final thoughts and who would you recommend this to?
Oh, I think it's a solid thing that that Paul said about people that like Criterion releases. You know,
Mhm.
when we said we were going to talk about this, when I was like, oh, I love Man Who Fell to Earth, and I was like, I don't have it. I wonder if I could get it. The Criterion Blu-ray was like out of print for like the last 6 years, which is really disappointing. But Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now, it was a very recent release from just a few months ago from Criterion. It's the movie he did right before Man Who Fell to Earth, and it's a horror movie, and it is unforgettable. So I
Mhm.
recommend definitely, if you can't get a hold of Man Who Fell to Earth, if you're a sci-fi fan of 70s sci-fi pre-Star Wars stuff, because things did change. After that, there would not be a Star Trek the motion picture without Star Wars, or an Alien, or a Buck Rogers, or a black hole. But
Or
yeah, if you like, even like maybe Solaris, Planet of the Apes, Andromeda Strain, Slaughterhouse-Five, you have to see Man Who Fell to Earth to be a completist on that stuff. As fans of David Bowie, you guys that like Labyrinth, you know, uh,
hmm
or Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me into the Night, even like what was that one, The Prestige that he was in.
Yeah.
Um, what you got to remember is David Bowie, when he was in The Man Who Fell to Earth, nobody knew if he could act. He was a famous musician,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
people were like, is he going to be any good? And we all have seen movies where a musician is in it that's not very good. But Nicholas Roeg made the movie Performance, which is a part of Jay Hoberman's Midnight Movies book. It's listed as a classic cult film, and Mick Jagger's a star of that. So he had some, experience dealing with the pop stars and everything. But I feel like Bowie's performance in Man Who Fell to Earth is definitely in the ranks with, like, some of the best. Debbie Harry and Videodrome, Bjork Dancer in the Dark, Ice Cube and Boys in the Hood. Who am I forgetting? Queen Latifah in Chicago.
hmm
Tom Waits and everything he was in.
Yeah.
Shortcut, I guess. Shortcuts. But it's just a perfect. You can't imagine anyone else doing it. And it's so cool. And I know we kind of slammed Candy Clark a little bit, and I know she probably got the role because she was dating Rogue at the time they made it. But I love Candy Clark, man. I
hmm
thought she was like, who else would have played that? Karen Black's the only other person I think could have pulled off
Yeah.
Mary Lou. And she's very Karen Black-esque. Probably, I don't even know who people would know her mostly from. I guess Buffy's mom in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
hmm
She's in the Blob remake. She's the waitress in the Blob remake. It's got that great scene.
Yeah,
Cat's Eye.
she was in a number
Yes.
of horror films like that. Blue
Yeah.
Thunder. She was in Blue
Yeah,
Thunder as
Blue
well.
Thunder. American Graffiti, probably the first
Yep.
Yeah.
role.
Where she
Sorry.
got actually awarded nominated for Academy Award.
Yeah, I think she's good. I think Mary Lou is exactly what the movie needs. They need somebody with that kind of energy because it does have kind of a pace to it. It does have a kind of an airy weirdness to it. And I think, yeah, ultimately, if you like movies that just are out to do something to you, that you don't necessarily have to sit there and gather all this information and know a lot of things and are, like, trying to build a world and trying to have their own mythology. I'm sorry, man. I know that sci-fi is built on that and it's their bread and butter and a lot of geeks love that. I don't like that stuff. I'm sorry. I don't like to have a lot of information. I like to sometimes just put stuff on. That's why you love watching 2001.
Yeah.
It just is. It's just a movie. And thank goodness for movies like that. And I'm glad they made it, and I'm really glad they made Man Who Fell to Earth.
And I'll say as well that even though we picked on the Mary Lou character as a performance, she does great. The character itself, you're supposed to be kind of annoyed. You're supposed to be uncomfortable with her, but Candy Clark played her very well, and you get the exact reaction from that character that I think you're supposed to. And if you people are thinking, oh, this is just some dusty 40-year-old film, this film influenced a lot of things later on. Just according to IMDb, some of the things it influenced was the music video for the Dope Show used themes from Man to Fell to Earth, as
A
well as
lot of music videos stole or were
Welcome to the
inspired.
Jungle and
Yeah.
Barbarella's song as well used influence from this, especially Big Audio Dynamite referenced it in lyrics as well as visually for their E=MC² video.
Yeah.
For those of you who are wondering and are into comic book films, Watchman, the apartment for Mandius, I always mispronounce that, Dr. Manhattan's apartment and Ozzy's Arctic Retreat were both based off of the set from The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
In the
That's cool,
films.
man.
So, The Fringe used, one of the characters uses the alias of Thomas Jerome Newton. My point being is, one of the reasons I want to explore these films from '76 is because of this. David Bowie especially was a very influential artist, and I don't think anyone realized it till his passing, unfortunately, just how many people were into David Bowie and the extent, the reach of his work. And this is one of those pieces where if you're a David Bowie fan, if you're a new David Bowie fan, seek this film out and see it. You will enjoy it. You will probably get it, especially if you are a big fan of his. And if you just like kind of that obscure sci-fi, if you haven't yet for some reason, see this film. And see it with a group of people. So you can sit like us folks here and talk about it, because there's a lot you could talk about, a lot you can interpret. Film is completely subjective, and that's why I enjoy it so much, and I think that's why everyone in the crew here tonight also enjoys films like The Man Who Fell to Earth. They're sometimes hard to watch, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So we'll go down the list here real quick. You just get where we can find you at when you're not here talking to me. So, Glenn, go ahead, sir.
You can find me on Facebook with the BB Bunker, on YouTube, BB Bunker and Naked Productions. You can also find me on gncast.com, Galactic Netcast, for my gaming podcast, The Adventure Party, or just follow me on Twitter at Naked Hobo.
Fantastic. And go ahead, Mr. Gonzorific.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Hey, I just want to say you guys are great. I got so much out of listening to you guys, and Criterion, I love them, but man, why don't you put this movie back out so I could buy it? I would have loved to have watched this thing before I was on this thing, but but thank goodness everybody had some awesome insight. Let's see. Gonzorific, YouTube, you can watch a lot of my old movies and a lot of my shorter films on the YouTube channel, just GONZORIFFIC. If you want to rent some really cheap, new, cheesy DIY cult film type stuff, Amazon On Demand has my movies Fake Blood, Mondo Gonzo, Pajama Nightmare, and The Underground Cinema with an S. And there's a Wikipedia about me apparently, so Making Life, something's on there.
And Paul, go ahead.
When I'm not being mistaken for a Lithuanian.
Yes.
What?
That was one of the great the comedic lines in there is,
yes.
Go ahead, ask the question.
That's on your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. David Bowie's character asks, go ahead, ask the one question that has been on your mind for all this time since you met me. And he goes, are you Lithuanian?
Oh, I don't remember that. That's
line.
Awesome.
But yes, you can, in seriousness, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and WordPress at Forsaken Film Reviews.
Fantastic. And yes, you can find all our episodes here in the Spoiler Room, as well as everything that I work on at specialmarkproductions.com, where I have my recent Final Cut episodes posted there, my reviews, stuff I do for We Live Film. You can also find some of my episodes on nerdslant.com. And also occasionally I am privileged to be on the Astro Radio Z podcast, which I have to plug. We just recorded a recent episode with them. I was a guest on it, and so was Glenn, and we talked about the Howling first three films. We're doing a franchise coverage of all the Howling films, and we did the first three, so seek out Astro Radio Z. I believe it's astroradioz.wordpress.com. But if you just Google Astro Radio Z, it'll come up. Or you can find us, specialmarkproductions.com, the Spoiler Room podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Spoiler Room PDCS, or myself at Movie Maniac 3D. That's right, it is the Spoiler Room. Hope you enjoyed our first of our many big 4-0 episodes. The next one up is going to be Assault on Precinct 13, so you'll want to check that out. Look for our website for when that episode comes out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, remember, in the Spoiler Room, the conversation is fresh, but we do spoil the movies.